The Indian External Affairs Minister S Jaishankar is in Israel for a 5-day visit. In focus is a quadrilateral meeting between the US, India, Israel and the UAE. The foreign ministers of the 4 countries will be meeting virtually. This is a meeting like no other. Relations between these 4 nations are diverse. Both India and Israel are allies of the United States. Meanwhile, Israel and the UAE normalized relations just over a year ago. The focus also remains on Iran. While both the US and Israel have talked tough on the West Asian country, Tehran and New Delhi enjoy good ties with each other. And with us on the broadcast is our correspondent Susan Teherani, joining us live from New York. Hi, Susan. There are multiple challenges, also opportunities for the US when it comes to this quadrilateral meeting, which is going to be taking place while the Indian External Affairs Minister is in Israel. Tell us more about what the US expectations are at this point.
Well, really, it comes at a time when the United States is evaluating its relationships and its position in the Middle East. And, you have a few factors. On the one hand, it's thinning its presence in Iraq. On the other hand, it's also reevaluating its partnership and relationship with Saudi Arabia. You mentioned Iran. It comes at a time when the future of the Iran nuclear deal stands in limbo, and there is talk of a quote-unquote Plan B. It also comes at a time when several weeks ago, you may remember that Secretary of State Antony Blinken said that he hoped that the Abraham Accord would sort of pave the way as a cooperation and agreement factor and would work in a way where additional countries would also come forth and sign similar deals with Israel. So we're seeing that into play as well. So the United States has a lot at stake, and as it sees itself not only in the Middle East but beyond with the withdrawal from Afghanistan, it's finding perhaps newer alliances and more creative ways in staying engaged in the region. It also plays very well in the foreign policy messaging of the Biden administration with its multilateral foreign policy approach and diplomacy that it's been talking about in the last 9 months.
Right, and WION has been closely tracking that visit of the Indian External Affairs Minister S Jaishankar, who is currently in Israel. On agenda, a lot of bilaterals, meetings, bolstering India-Israel ties. While the Indian External Affairs Minister was touring the Israel Museum in Jerusalem, WION's Jody Cohen asked him what this visit means for the India-Israel relationship. Listen in to this exclusive conversation.
Nice to meet you. Thank you. So, Minister Jaishankar, we're standing by a model of an ancient synagogue from India.
We're standing actually at the synagogue.
We are standing at the synagogue.
Yes.
And the ties between the Jewish community in India and in Israel, and indeed the ties between Israel, they've been going on for 30 years now. Where do you expect the cooperation between the 2 countries to go from here?
Well, in a way, it's a very appropriate place that we are talking, because this place in many ways expresses the deep civilizational bonds between India and Israel. Our relationship, of course, is rooted in history, but very much a part of modernity as well. Our relationship in the last many years has covered areas like agriculture, water, to some degree defense, security. But now we are looking much more at technology, at innovation, at, I would say, human-centric activities, because that's where the world is heading. It could be, again, it could be in terms of the green economy, it could be in terms of the frontiers of different technologies. So I'm very sure that the next 30 years would be way, way beyond the last 30 years.
During his visit to Israel, the Indian External Affairs Minister visited the Israel Museum. This is the largest museum in the country, located in Jerusalem. S Jaishankar was accompanied by Israel's new ambassador to India. Nayor Gilon said that the visit highlighted the ties that India and Israel share. The Indian External Affairs Minister toured the museum, taking a look at the replica of the Kochini synagogue, an exhibition of Indian art, also the Dead Sea Scrolls, He also met with young members of the Kochini Jewish community.
A Jewish Ukrainian American fled from the communists.
You are there, I'm safe.
Yeah. Yes.
Stay easy.
So I'm inside the Israel Museum where Minister Jaishankar is being shown a collection of Indian art and artifacts. He's been shown around, this is one of the top 20 museums in the world according to Newsweek, and the largest museum in the whole of Israel.
The Israel Museum, listed as the world's 17th largest museum, it has massive collections of archaeology and Jewish ritual objects. Founded in 1965, the museum has a gallery area of 199,000 square feet. It contains some 500,000 pieces of art, including several Indian artifacts.
So this concludes Minister Jaishankar's visit to the Israel Museum, and he will be going back to the hotel now before he will be taking part in the first ever quadrilateral meeting between India's foreign minister and the Israeli counterparts, and also being joined by the US and UAE.
India and Israel have traditionally enjoyed close ties. While India recognized the Jewish state of Israel way back in 1950, it established full diplomatic ties in 1992. And since then, the ties between the two countries have been growing. The Indian External Affairs Minister's current visit has further bolstered these ties. On his maiden visit to Jerusalem, S. Jaishankar visited the Indian cemetery at Talpiot. Here, he paid homage to the fallen Indian soldiers from the First World War. The Indian External Affairs Minister also unveiled this plate commemorating the Bhudan Grove. This was planted by Sarvodaya workers in the Jerusalem forest in 1960. The unveiling of this highlighted some of the lesser facets of the India-Israel relationship. The minister also visited the Indian hospice, which has been recently renovated with the help of the Indian government. The Indian External Affairs Minister added that this represents another historical connect with Jerusalem. WION now available in your country. Download the app now. Get all the news on the move.